Well, it's taking me a minute, and yeah, and I didn't correct my chalkboard, although this is just a fine chalkboard for today. That's how we're starting here. We're starting by just what? Randomly mentioning a chalkboard. This is Dr. Annette Feravich, and I am the teacher, and you are here in the critical thinking classroom. And as you can see in this classroom, we start by running. We don't even take a slow pause when we start this class. We have to because we're a little late. So, give me a sec while I do this. Perfecto. Let me show you today. So here is our title for today, right? So, and I just changed it right before we got here. This is day 5 of our slavery series, but we really are moving into some ideas and concepts that are much more like our high school critical thinking class is supposed to be. I, you know, I'll just say, I leave it up to the Holy Spirit to give me guidance as a lot of times in these classrooms, although I have a lot of knowledge as well. Of course, I have a lot of knowledge. I mean, I'm old and I've been studying this for a long time. But, so I would like you to, I'm hoping that you have seen some of my other classrooms and followed along at least a little bit, especially my Bookless classroom. And as I said, I look at this book and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to mention this book for our race class and politics series, which is our slavery series. But as I said, we're moving into the material that is really high school level material and beyond. And beyond, I'm going to show you what I mean. And beyond. This is heavy duty stuff that we're talking about. And it might be helpful for you, as I start to say, to, look at some of the other classrooms that we've been talking about as well. In our Bookless classroom, quite a while ago, we read this book, Hurry Freedom. It's an amazing book. There's a couple books I've read on that are historic books for younger people that have just been just out of the gate fantastic. This was one of them, and then this book here that I bought for my family instead of them, whatever. On California is just an unbelievable book. Did I mention that they looted my father-in-law's house? It would be different if, the sons or daughters did, but it was the daughter-in-law. I know. And that is, I mean, if I could just take a little microcosm of an example, that would be a microcosm of an example. How we have characterized Black people while in the face of behavior that, I'm just thinking of so many big words like projection. It's projection. Oh my gosh, they point the finger at Black people and they say they loot while they are in front of the world looting. Now, people are, if politics have gotten more sophisticated than that, right? I say, Gretchen Whitmer is Heidi Hertling, and she's a Republican, and her dad is a German from way back. So, that's what I think is going on in Michigan, and that's the truth. That's the truth. Why wouldn't our criminal behavior that eliminates people by mischaracterizing them? I mean, I'm the microcosm. Oakland University trying to mischaracterize me in awful ways to eliminate me. I think that that's what this whole Gretchen Whitmer hostage thing is all about as well. I do. I'm sorry. What was that? The world? What? The world? What? Sorry. Way too many people. So, You have to begin to learn to understand these things on all kinds of different levels. That's what this classroom is all about. We use Bloom's taxonomy, which is what I was just going to call up here. In order for us to think about things in all kinds of different ways on many different levels. We have to. I mean, if we, as I've said many, many times, I used to think that we could be a country that didn't have to read between the lines, but it seems that we've always been a country that has to read between the lines. It's just whether or not we think we do and where we think that we have to read between the lines and what is truth. Because reading between the lines, we still have to use information, right? And we're finding the truth in the information. So this was in the Bookless classroom quite a while ago, which demonstrates just a perfect example. Even the Underground Railroad demonstrates an example of how thinking human beings, Black people, have always been. I mean, to be able to come and be stolen from their country and culture in 1619 and brought to this country without knowing any language, and then to have evolved into entrepreneurs and business owners and politicians and farmers and factory workers and educators. So it's just, the only thing holding that back were other human beings who have always believed that they are higher up on the totem pole. This isn't new news, right? We could look at, and in fact, that's probably what we're going to end up doing. We'll go into the bell curve is what we'll do. We started talking about this one other time, but we didn't go into it this way, right? So I believe we showed it doesn't matter. Yeah. So look into information that we've had on the bell curve and Arthur Jensen. I mean, I know that's his name. I'm surprised I pulled it out of my hat that quickly. I usually don't, which usually means to me, it usually means think about it. You pulled that out of your hat so quickly. Maybe there are some associations to be made with that name. Arthur Jensen. I don't know. Not right now. So made a career out of misinterpreting and misrepresenting and then misaligning is the word I was thinking of. Information regarding Blacks, African Americans' performance on standardized tests, right? So what's a standardized test? A standardized test are those tests that you fill in your circles, right? If you're taking a test where you have to fill in circles and then they end up going through a computer, right? Those are original ones, not the Scantrons for your daily tests or whatever, but like you fill in those circles, right? That's likely a standardized test. Your SATs, your ACTs, your GREs, those are all standardized tests. And what that means is that your scores are being compared to a standard for everybody who falls in your demographic. So that would be your age, your gender, your educational level, your it may even be your class, right? It might even be your race. And that's what Jensen was determining, was that it was something about the color of a person's skin that dumbed them down. This is what Arthur Jensen was saying in the era of psychology. But there was a whole movement that helped support Jensen's research, and the whole movement was a eugenics movement. Now, I know I've talked about that, but we get our information in this classroom presented in a lot of different ways, so, and different times, so that we can churn up that information and add it to our, brain database, right? Okay, so I want you, this is a heavy duty, we're already on day 5 of this slavery, but slavery isn't really what we're talking about. Slavery is only the common name for what we need to evaluate and analyze and understand that's going on in our past history and is affecting all kinds of things today. So we need to understand this dynamic between race, class, and politics. Slavery was the behavioral outcome of these dynamics. Slavery was one outcome. Mass shootings is an outcome. January 6th is an outcome. The last president not leaving office is an outcome of the dynamics between race, class, and politics. What are dynamics? What does it mean to be dynamic? Dynamic only means to move, just to move. Something that's dynamic is always moving, all right? It's so interesting because I am going to get to early birds, prefixes and suffixes, and now, and I did patho, which is disease or suffering or feeling, right? And now I am doing dyna or dino, which is, I know it's an explosion, so dynamic, but it is not exactly, right? Because dynamic is moving. It's early bird classroom. We don't really get into this, but knowing our the roots, isn't it etymology? I think it is. Knowing the roots and meanings of words and where they came from, the history of those words, it really helps you understand your language and then communicate exactly what you mean, right? I don't want to say that race, class, and politics are in conflict with one another. That, although true, is not always true. The reason why it is true is because they're constantly moving. I don't know why I only have 259 frames dropped, but I see, what's up YouTube with them. So understanding dynamic, right? Just like we did with the word pathos or patho, which has the meaning of disease, as in pathology, right? Or psychopathology, right? As in suffering, as in you're pathetic. Or it can also mean feeling, as in empathy. So see, if I know that pathos means all of those things, I can understand a word I may not know if it has the pathos in there, right? So same kind of thing, dynamic. And I don't have the big, my Southwest encyclopedias right here with me, but that's okay because I had to show you some other books anyway in this. So what I said was this is an introduction to, because we're on day 5 of slavery, or 6 or whatever. I think it's 5. I hope I keep those numbers, get those numbers confused. There's a good reason for it, but whatever. But then I said an introduction, right? Then I said an introduction. So class, race, politics, race, class, politics, however, right? An introduction, I want you to sort of get an idea of the fact that this topic is not about slavery. This topic is about, slavery was an outcome of the dynamics of race, class, and politics. I could hook you in a little bit with the concept of slavery. Not everybody, because they're so sick of talking about stuff like that, right? But we're going to get at it in a real adult way that's very educated, and then allows you to do your own analysis, and you'll end up having your own outcomes as far as conclusions go and feelings go, right? Okay, so I'm showing you something else to give you an introduction to this class today, right? On race, class, and politics. I'm keeping up that slavery day, whatever, because you need to connect to this. You are getting a topic that is very adult, is what you're doing. But we need to, because, I keep hearing that, Beatles song, there's gonna be a revolution. Yeah, I know. I can't just break out into song, but that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. It wasn't great. I'm not saying I'm trying out for American Idol. If you remember, I'm a teacher. I'm just saying. I sometimes feel like breaking out in song, and when I do it on camera, I realize it's not always a good idea. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Can you just let it go over there, church? Can you let it go? Don't ever sing. Screw you. Wayne's World, back to this world. Okay, so these are books I haven't read. I don't even know if this one was required reading in the class that I took, but it was a graduate level class. It was a graduate level class, and this is why but I can't believe I read all these books in that class, but I did read some of them. And so here we have Divided We Fall. So these are concepts that are related. I'm not just showing you and look at this book. No, because I didn't even read this book, as you can see, no highlights. So I'm not trying to impress you. I know somewhere along the line, do a pretty good job reading this. I mean, I have a marker there in the middle of the book. Black Reconstruction. So anything that you are picking up on Reconstruction period, or understanding about the Reconstruction period, is it is relevant to what we're talking about right now in this classroom, as far as class, race, and politics. It's relevant to what we're talking about historically in our Bookless classroom with the Civil War and what brought us to this era. And if you can think of the hot topic that the Civil War and the Confederate Army is in this country right now, with our Confederate flags still flying all over the place, then you also know that this topic of Reconstruction is applicable today. We can talk about it today in our current events and what is happening in current events, basically. Okay? All right. But what I'm trying to expose you to is the depth of the topic, but also that maybe one of these topics that are related, this is an introduction, right? That one of these related topics will spur you into an interesting path, like learning about the Confederacy, like learning about I mean, look at what I just looked up. That was for, that's not what I want. I want this other one here. I mean, if you have not heard of this movie, The Birth of a Nation, then maybe this topic just isn't a topic that you're going to be that interested in. But I have a feeling that a lot of you know this movie, The Birth of a Nation. And it was, for a very long time, it says here, popular among white audiences upon its release. The film's success was both a consequence of and a contributor to racial segregation throughout the United States. In response to the film's depictions of Black people and Civil War history, African Americans across the United States organized and protested. Despite, look at the next paragraph, despite its divisiveness, The Birth of a Nation was, I don't remember if it was assigned or not for me to watch, but it was talked about in one of my classes, and so certainly, or maybe we did watch it in the class. We could have easily watched it in the class. I'm not sure, but I've seen the movie. I'm going to see it again. I'm going to watch it again. It's just, what was astounding to me is the popularity, and I still can't wrap my brain around it, because there was some stat about how long that movie was the #1 grossing movie, how long it was that way. But it was replaced by what, Star Wars? Yeah, I don't know if that's what it was, but it was something that was that big. Maybe it was Jaws. Maybe it was Jaws. I don't know which one came first, Jaws or Star Wars, anyway. But there's some stat about the popularity of this Birth of a Nation that's astounding to me when you look at the film and you see how racist it is. It looks like it was pulled out from somebody's basement and they went, hey, look at this. And yet it was the popular movie of this nation. Now, again, we're being lied to on all kinds of levels. So I may not even know what I'm talking about. The urban web. So this was part of politics, policy, and theory. So the class didn't just talk about ancient history. The class was really talking about how this class, race, and politics affected, in this case, slums. Our slums. What we called slums. We're not allowed to call them slums. Call them what you built. Call them exactly what you built. You built slums is what you did. You created slums. Call it that. Black looks. I read some of this. But not a lot. I know that. So I'm not even sure. Let's see. In these 12 new essays, feminist theories and cultural critic Bell Hooks digs ever deeper into the personal and political consequences of contemporary representations of Black women and men within our white supremacist culture. Taking on popular music, advertising, literature, television, historical narrative, and most importantly, film, Hooks consistently demonstrates the incisive intelligence and passion for justice that prompted Publishers Weekly to dub her one of the foremost Black intellectuals in America today. I'm going to read this one. So these are 12 essays. I did read some of it. I was going to say, I can't believe that they're essays and I didn't read any of them. Local people, the struggle for civil rights in Mississippi. Yeah. And I read a lot of this. Not all of it, but a lot of it. I mean, these were all books, I think, in one class. Honestly. A small city in France. A socialist mayor confronts neo-fascism. This is an interesting book because we think of socialists as being the enemy, as being deviant, as being the devil. We have portrayed socialists in this country as being from the devil. It's socialists that are eating babies, right? We portrayed them, but here it is a socialist mayor that confronts neo-fascism. Is new. Neo means new. That's what I was going to start saying about that dynamic that I want to look up the prefix and see what it means because it's in the Southwestern Encyclopedia. I didn't put that whole thought together for you, but that's why I was looking for that encyclopedia. So neo means new. So to know, understand words, prefixes, and suffixes, and they have a whole list of prefixes and suffixes in that encyclopedia. I wanted to see they had patho, or maybe they didn't. I had to look it up. No, I had to look it up there in the dictionary over there. I did. It's right open right there. It is. It's right over. It's right over there. Anyway. So that's interesting, right? We in this country, and this is the misinformation and the framing that we see going on consistently. And then we get a whole revolution, a whole movement of people to climb all over our Capitol building based on all kinds, not just misinformation about the election being stolen, but misinformation about what socialism is and what it can do for our country. Misinformation about movements that are clearly white supremacist fascist movements, but they're reframing them. We're using euphemistic language. We talked about that. That's the reason why I'm saying in this critical thinking for high school students, see what you can do. You can go backwards, right, and go to the Bookless classroom and get great information from a middle school book like Hurry Freedom. You can jump ahead, or you can stick right around the age group, but decide that you're going to be looking at different topics. Angela Davis, right? So women, race, and class. So women's part of the women's black feminist movement. Southern labor and black civil rights. So this here, where the one focuses on Mississippi and civil rights, this one is just a different view from a broader perspective from the South. You're going to hear a lot of real facts that have to do with the Southern culture. When you're talking about black civil rights, you're talking about the movement that came after the Civil War, right? W.E.B. Du Bois, who wrote Reconstruction, the big fat book of Reconstruction that I read. Oh, no. I didn't want to do that. I have to spend time picking that up because those were all the books I haven't shown you. This one, so he wrote this also, The Souls of Black Folks, and these are stories. This was not part of, I'll probably read one of these stories in I'll pull this out in our reading room. So these are short stories that describe, according to W.E.B. Du Bois, who wrote that great big Reconstruction book, that these stories represent the souls of black folk. Okay? So all of these, so maybe if you want literature and stories, maybe you want women's rights movements, maybe you want the civil rights movement, maybe you want to think about the Civil War, right? Maybe you want to think about the gold rush in California. All of these, maybe you want to think about the movie, The Birth of a Nation. Maybe you want to watch that movie, The Birth of a Nation, right? These are all ways that you are going to be able to get a deeper dive into this class, race, and politics. All right? So we are sort of almost moving into a new topic, but the only reason why the reason why I wanted to keep that is because the slavery concept is the roots here, right? That's another deep dive that you might want to go into. It's the roots here. It keeps this raining again. Look at that topic rather simple for us. I was just looking though, because it almost looks like it's hail. We're just getting the weirdest weather. I said our lightning was nonstop last night. It was like, and if I could do it with the other lamp, because the other lamp worked, you could have more than one. That's all night long here in Michigan. I've never seen it all night long. I woke up 4 times last night. And then when I woke up at about 6 o'clock, it was done at 6 o'clock. But I went to bed. It started at, I don't remember. It started at like 11 o'clock, but the lightning started probably about midnight. It started at 10 o'clock, but the lightning probably started at midnight. And then it was like just like that, all night long, the flashes. Okay. 3 more books I want to show you that fell down that I said, oh no, I have to pick them up. That might interest you, that all have to do with this topic, that are a little bit off. We're not going to talk about these. We're going to talk about some of these things, but most of these we are not. But they are, and we have already talked about some of them as well, right? So this is Class, Race, and the Civil Rights Movement. All right. So more specific, this was a good book. Lots of highlight check marks on that one. And not a lot of highlights. I don't know. But lots of check marks there. The ironies of affirmative action. The ironies. So these are the concepts that have to do with, some of you understand this, maybe not in high school, but adults will understand it. And you just ask your parents about affirmative action and they'll probably go on for, 45 minutes to talk to you about it. Because there are a lot of ironies. It was in place for one thing, and the ironic thing is it did exactly the opposite. And what this book does is it confirms the concept that giving people without work or, without earning it will only create dependent people. It will not be the springboard for them to get better. It will be the springboard for them to dive deeper into dependency. The ironies of affirmative action. That's true and it's not true. There's convenient misrepresentation of some of the data based on truths that are in the data as well. Why revolution? I think this might be the one that I'm going to read, although I don't think anyone has to convince me. That we need a revolution. I just sang it, and if I sang it on the air, I think that we must need it. They're taking you right through it. Aristotle, Man and Revolution. When I do that, I probably should do it right in front of you so you can enjoy it as well. So here, what I did was I just looked at the table of contents is what I did. So you can enjoy the table of contents and look at it to the degree that you want to look at it. I probably should have done this with each one of the books, shouldn't I have? Okay. Why revolution? You got a minute? I'll tell you why. Okay, so I wanted to show you all of that again, this is an introduction. So what is this about? What are we talking about? We're talking about the dynamics of race, class, and politics, how they work together. And because this is moving in this direction and this is moving in this direction, that they are bumping into one another and we have conflict as well. Okay, so I'm trying to think. Of what else I might want to, I wanted to say, if there was something else I really wanted to say to you about this, and I don't think that there is. I think that's a good introduction for whatever time we've been on here for, that's a good introduction. If you haven't seen The Birth of a Nation, I encourage you to see it. And I'm going to watch it again, like I said, with different eyes. I've also, if you haven't been with me, I've also been studying all kinds of monuments that we've had dedicated to the Civil War, decisions. I'm sorry, yeah, dedicated to decisions that were made that led to our Civil War. What is that? That's yeah. But also how some of these decisions came about. Where is that one? There it is. Historically. So here we were looking at in the Bookless classroom. Yep, if you can believe that. I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute. Those are all of our public monuments and memorials, right? Or some kind of memorial, some kind of dedication to, this is Florida, folks, there's Florida, to the Confederate Army and the Confederacy. So I've been looking into that and in our Bookless classroom and have come across, like I said, the number of Confederate monuments that we have. These are the number of monuments across the world for those who fought against slavery. And when you see like the type of dedication that we have in this country, which basically promotes slavery, it does make you wonder I'm wondering why. There we go. Continue reading. Why I'm not getting the long list of these. It makes you wonder why so much money and energy spent on the Confederate monuments, and then also a misrepresentation of what those monuments really meant. So we've had a real awakening to what these monuments have meant and the political unrest that it reflects on this country, that it motivates in this country. And so it is more than just, and we've done this in these mass shootings that have been motivated by these mental representations and physical representations, which motivate a spirit of inequality, a spirit of violence, a spirit of fascism, an atmosphere of totalitarianism, dictatorship, and a complete lack of democracy, an undemocratic society in the United States, which creates a completely hypocritical environment. We say we are all for the dream, and you come here for the dream, and we are shocked by the presence of slavery. Right? If you remember that. So that's where we're going with this. That's my introduction. I actually do want to get one more thing. Oh, it's right here. Oh my gosh, it's right here. You know, you can understand the problems that I'm talking about, race, class, and politics, if you understand Reconstruction. If you understand our Reconstruction, you can understand it. And here's the importance of that. Have you ever heard anyone say, you know, slavery was 200 years ago, get over it, right? You'll understand how present it is in our thinking today if you understand Reconstruction. How is it that slavery was, you know, even more than 200 years ago, right? And yet, we had at the end of slavery in 1865, slavery ended in this country in April 1865. Not usually very good at dates, but I'm getting to know them. And yet, after that, we had black codes and the Jim Crow laws and lynchings in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. How did that happen? The war had ended in 1865, right? So if that was the case, how did we have lynchings and the civil rights movement? How did we have all of those violations of rights if slavery ended in 1865? To understand that, understand Reconstruction. And what I'm showing you in this book is that you can get an understanding of Reconstruction at any level that you need. This is more of a middle school, high school level. Look at all those wonderful pictures included, but lots and lots. There's Frederick Douglass. Lots and lots of print as well. What is this? A group of African Americans in Port Royal Island, newly freed from slavery, 1863 to 1866. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing that I can see a picture of a picture from 1863 or 8 to 1860, circa around there. And these are all the changes in the laws that were to support the abolishment of slavery, but in an underhanded way supported the same old white supremacist, white is supreme, that's what that means, right? White is dominant structure that we had. So I want to see those laws. I'm looking more in our Bookless classroom on the exact laws. I just came across one. Not there. Where was that law? I actually do want to see if I could find it quickly. There it is. There it is. I got it. Which is called that's not what I wanted. The Interstate Commerce Act, which was passed in 1887. So we begin to see that laws are being put into place in order for the rich to become richer. And these laws are complicated, more secretive, and was still in effect until 1995. And it was only abolished in 1995 because we've got enough laws that support the same concept. Now, we have laws that are passed like voters' rights acts. All right? So I'm going to put this up here. This is an act. This is an act. This is the Interstate Commerce Act is what this is, right? So you can read about it there, and I haven't thoroughly wrapped my brain around it. What I know is this law was put in place to support the business that was basically could have been consumed, lost after slavery was abolished. So these are new laws being put into place to support commerce, business and commerce, now that slavery has been abolished. This law, like I said, was abolished in 1995. Why? Because they say it right there, because other laws have basically taken its place. It's no longer needed. We have the Voters' Rights Act and the Homestead Act. Look them up. Voters' Rights Act of 1965. I believe that that act has not been renewed yet. It's been an argument. Nobody apparently, as long as people don't pay any attention to it, it won't get renewed. We've got all kinds of other things that we're juggling over here. So Homestead Act, so you can't discriminate in selling homes. You can't discriminate at voting booths, right? Or put something or threaten people at a voting booth or voting areas. I don't believe that those acts have been re-signed. They have to be re-signed. They come up for re-signature. I don't believe that those acts have been re-signed. Voters' Rights Act introduced in 1965. Homestead Act, I think 1963, something like that. This was introduced in 1887 and had a life until 1995 when it was just no longer necessary. How do we not reenact Voters' Rights Acts, Homestead Acts, but we managed to make sure that we have that Interstate Commerce Act since 1887, renewed every year until 1995. How is that? That right there, I hope you just got that. I hope you just got what I said, because that is a little story about what I'm talking about. The laws from 1887 that are put in place to serve commerce and to oppress people. They want this hierarchy, and it is the race and the class that is bucking up against the politics. And what are the politics doing? They're dividing class by race. Why? I'll support commerce, which supports the hierarchy, money makers, and business people, but not the Voters' Rights Acts or the Homestead Acts. What class of people do those acts serve? And now you see the rub. Now you begin to see the rub. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thank you so much for joining me here in the classroom. I got it done. I'm really happy because I knew that this is so filled with, meat and potatoes. And I think I explained it the way I wanted to. The importance of this, and also hopefully triggered some interest that you have in the many topics, including legislation, that is fertile for change, or there's gonna be a revolution. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. We can do it. It can't be chaos. It's got to be organized. Otherwise, we're going to lose our structure and never get it back. Dr. Annette Feravich, I'm the teacher. We have been thinking very critically in this critical thinking classroom. Thanks for joining me. Let me see. What do I want to do? I know what I want to do.